No, I think we're best. Okay, let us get started. Welcome to the second edition of our monthly reading with the Publishing Triangle. My name is Greg Newton. I am the co-founder, along with my partner, Donnie Jokum, of the Bureau of General Services Queer Division, which is the space you are now in. And yesterday we celebrated our 11th anniversary. Actually, we didn't do much celebrating. I just posted something, you know, after 11 years, you're like, we're just going to keep going. But thank you for all the love that we received on the internets, in the social medias. We appreciate it. The Bureau, as you know, is an all-volunteer organization. Tonight, I am the only volunteer. I'm hoping Bonita is feeling better. So we have a suggested donation of $10, but as we always say, give what you can if you can. And there's some change in the bag, so I'll pass that around, but you can also give on Venmo at BGSQD. Thank you, Rob. And if you would like to become a monthly supporter, you can go to our website, bgsqd.com, and click on donate, and we would much appreciated. That just helps us to keep this store fully stocked with new and exciting books and to keep the whole ship running. So thanks very much. If you're not already on our email list and you would like to be, you can sign up for that at the register or on our website, and you'll get an email every other Monday about our many upcoming events. And our regular store hours are Wednesdays through Sundays from 1 to 7 p.m. And then we stay open late when we have events like this. So before we get started, I wanted to read a land acknowledgement. So the Bureau acknowledges that our organization operates on the unceded land of the Munsee Lenape. We encourage you to join the Bureau in signing up to make a monthly donation to the American Indian Community Houses Mannahatta Fund. The Mannahatta Fund, according to its website, is an invitation to all settlers and non-native people who wish to acknowledge the legacy of theft and genocide that comprise the history of New York City and the United States. And you can find out more at mannahattafund.org. We also want to recognize that at this very moment, the ongoing genocide of the Palestinian people by the State of Israel is actively supported by our government with our tax dollars. We hope that you will join us in calling for a ceasefire and the swift delivery of food, water, medicine, and fuel to the people of Gaza. And now I will turn it over to Rob Burns from the Publishing Triangle. Please give it up.
Thank you, Greg. And wow, what a great look. There's like 20, 25 people in the audience, which is, you know, for some of us who have read to an audience of one staff member from a bookstore, it's really exciting. So thank you for being there, and thank you for many more people that are watching via YouTube and that will in the upcoming days. I'm going to not speak about the Publishing Triangle, except for to say, go to publishingtriangle.org. look at our membership page, because our organization runs on exclusively on donation with no paid staff. We are all volunteers. To the extent you can help, membership is $40 a year. And you know, I can do my whole Sally Struthers thing and go there, well, it's less than $1 a week. You will be doing so much to help us support queer literature. Let me add, here in the audience today, I can't flip and I'm not going to have Greg do it, or we'll start losing our online guests. But here in the audience today, we have Carol Rosenfeld, who's been the chair of the Publishing Triangle for like 12, 13 years. Carol also, by the way, was just given a Gay City News Impact Award last week. Frankly, overdue, but certainly well deserved. And two of our board members, one of whom will be reading tonight, Jim Berg, and the other, Gerard Cabrera, and we'll come back to him again, but Gerard will be coordinating the December 2nd OUTspoken reading, which will deal with AIDS on the day after World AIDS Day. Okay, and so, you know, remember, membership really helps. Let's go to our readers. We have 6, and we lost a reader. We had 7 scheduled. Mary Burns is sick. But we'll bring her back in January or February. And she said, as she says, no one wants to hear Kathleen Turner read. So we will. I know. I think it's kind of odd, actually. But we will bring her back when she's feeling better. In the meantime, let's start with a good friend of mine, Christian Baines, who's up in. I think he's up in Toronto. Christian is by his own self-description, Christian is an awkward nerd turned slightly less awkward author. Raised on dark humor and powered by New Zealand wine. I know lots of wine. I'm not sure I know that. Maybe I don't want to. But Christian's the author of 6 novels, including gay paranormal series, The Arcadia Trust. He was born in Australia. He now travels the world wherever possible, living and writing in Toronto, Canada, between trips. His most recent novel, and you know, I'm not playing favorites, but I blurbed it, okay, was My Cat's Guide to Online Dating, which is really twisted in all the right ways. Christian Baines.
Oh my goodness. Thanks very much, Rob. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Hi, everyone. So glad I could join you, albeit remotely. Would love to be there in person, but it's fantastic that we can do this and get authors from all over the world. As Rob said, my name is Christian Baines, and as a general rule, I tend to write gay horror smut. So queer vampires, queer werewolves, queer witches in an urban setting, none of whom are in the book I'm going to be reading from this evening. My Cat's Guide to Online Dating is a gay horror sex comedy told in 6 hookups with a horrible accident and a texting cat named Grace Jones, who is right here. Oh, we're having issues. Actually, I've got a photo of Grace Jones, but where are we? So, Rob, she says hello. So this is at she looks back quite fondly at meeting Rob at Saints and Sinners earlier this year. So anyway, tonight, so I'll be reading from My Cat's Guide to Online Dating. So I'll just grab it here. There we go. This is the problem with these the virtual backgrounds, right? There we go. And as I said, it begins with a horrible accident. It's about a young man who's deeply in the closet, who is house sitting for his parents in their absence over a summer. But the first hookup who he's invited over to take advantage of his long solitary summer has met with a bit of a mishap involving the stairs and several broken bones. Now, when you're not out in a small town, it's very difficult to just do normal, rational things like call the police. But he does get an offer of help from a very unusual source. So that's where we pick up. So this is my cat's guide to online dating. And a lot of this reading is happening via text message. You're not a fucking cat. You desire proof. Cats can't talk. We're not talking. We're texting. What do you want? Red meat, for starters. What? No more of those horrible dust biscuits. Red meat. Write it down, Zachary. Red. Now he was taking dinner orders from his cat over a hookup app. Whatever. I'll get some. I'll get some wet food tomorrow. If you want to eat that mashed up fish slop, Zachary, be my guest. I said meat. The fresher, the better. This was one hell of a prank. One that Zach could not explain, but no way was he texting with his cat. You know what? Whatever you say, kitty. I see the point is still to be made. Zach went back upstairs to the kitchen and started rifling through cupboards. Vodka, gin, bourbon. He passed on the pear cider and boxed Chardonnay, instead filling a glass with cold water. He leaned over the sink and tipped it over his face. Slightly better. Prank or no prank, he still had to deal with Conway's body and the missing phone. Somehow. His shoulders tightened and his teeth clenched as he heard a sickly coughing upstairs. Motherfucker! He put the glass aside and bolted up to his bedroom, but it was too late. A long trail of regurgitated kibble, stewed in cat bile, stretched from his shoes, across the t-shirt and underwear he tossed to the floor, to mere inches from his open bag. There, the trail ended in a swollen puddle of pale puke. The precision of it, the deliberate vindictiveness, the pettiness. His phone pinged again. Next time, the bag gets it. I'll fucking murder you. Threats, Zachary? Not wise. Murdered pets look so good on a criminal profile. Would you really consider such a thing, after all we've been through together? Besides, you'd still never find this phone. I even fixed its settings so its location can't be tracked. You're welcome for that, by the way. Can't have the police turning up the moment the douche prince of Fairview Baptist is reported missing now, can we? Zach swallowed. He hadn't even thought about that. Still, even if the police couldn't track down Conway's phone, he would have to. He had 6 weeks. See, I know you, Zachary. I know how you think, how you see this house. I know it better than you ever could. I know every nook and crevice, every smell, every flaw, and every crack. I'll find that phone. Ah, so you do believe me. Zach stared at the feline bath trail that decorated his room. Could he deny the evidence of his own eyes? No prankster could make a cat do this on cue. How? Your brain's the size of a walnut. Which says what of yours? I'm smart enough to be worshipped by people as a god by people who engineered the pyramids. Do you think I'm too stupid to text on an app? How can you even read? You were raised by evangelical Puritans, yet here we are, man whore. Grace Jones, tapping away on Conway's phone, little paws nimbly skipping over the screen, spelling each word perfectly. This, Zach had to see. Okay, where are you? Oh, and I suppose you promise not to snatch the phone away as soon as you see it. No, Zachary. Don't start insulting my intelligence now that you've accepted it. Besides, we have so much to talk about. You looked after me. Now, let me look after you. Look after me? Is that what you call this mess? Looking after me? A little baking soda and dish soap and all is well. I'm talking about the much larger mess in your freezer. Zach licked his lips, tapping fingers against the sides of his phone. You've never had to hide a kill before, Zachary. This is not some dead mouse or bird, damn it. No, this is far more succulent. And there's so much of it. Zach stared at this last message, muttering as the subtext landed. You're fucking kidding. Red meat, Zachary. Fresh, delectable. We can't let it all go to waste, and he can't be allowed to pop up somewhere. Not intact, anyway. You're disgusting, and you're in deep shit. I didn't kill him. Look, forget it. I'm calling the police. Ah, but you did move the body. A body filled with your fountain of renewal, let's say. If the police were an option, we both know you would have called them already. Can't have mum and dad finding out your summer plans now, can we? We both know what would happen. Zach did know. He remembered seeing the literature from the conversion therapy camps on his dad's desk. The smiling white faces of models posed as supposedly former homos, fawning over their stock photo wives and precocious brats, grinning like they were in a fucking pharma commercial. Zach could see it. Talk to your doctor to see if conversion therapy is right for you. Side effects may include sustained physical, mental abuse, chronic depression, anxiety, electroshock therapy, complex PTSD, and lasting inability to form healthy romantic or sexual relationships. Please note you will still crave dick. As I said, Zachary, I know you. Or do you think I didn't go through your phone as well? I'm glad you're more diverse than you've more diverse taste than the poor idiot in your freezer. You should see his favorites. I can't tell their pictures apart. Is there only one gym washroom in this town? Oh, except for the one holding a bucket of protein powder. What's that nonsense? Do an extra 5 push-ups, you lazy bitch. Zach sat down on the bed. Forget the cops. He needed to shrink. This couldn't be happening. Yet the story she told him, the precise vomiting on cue, he slapped himself hard across the cheek. Oh, good. Still awake. Fuck. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Christian. I hope you're going to be in Saints Sinners in New Orleans again this year. So, delightful book. This tonight. Oh, you know what? Hold on, I forgot. Last month, Del Corvino read here, and his book Bonds and Boundaries is out now. So, you know, credit where credit's due. Dale's out there pushing it. You go buy it. I don't remember. I just put it some random spot. So I'm the bookseller's worst. With Mary Burns sick tonight, we actually have 3 poets and 3 writers of fiction and nonfiction. So let's kick off with our first poet of the night. J.P. Howard is a current Learn with Lambda literary workshop facilitator. Her debut poetry collection, Say Near, the Operating System, was a Lambda Literary finalist. JP's received fellowships from Cave Canem, FONA, and Lambda Literary Foundation, and curates Women Writers in Bloom Poetry Salon. And you can visit her at jp-howard.com. JP, come on down. And you can hear from the applause that she's packed the crowd.
Thanks so much. Hi, everybody, thanks so much. Happy 11th year anniversary. So happy for you. I've been to so many events here, so much a part of my life. And thank you so much to for you all for sponsoring us tonight. I did want to say that I've been to so many events here, and a lot of what I chose tonight was whether poems that I've read, it may be launches that you've hosted here, or workshops that I've led. So that's what the theme that I decided to use was a lot of sort of queer poems that came out of either workshops here or readings that I did. The first one is actually from a anthology. The last time I was here, I saw that you did have it for sale, called Mouths of Rain, an anthology of Black lesbian thoughts by Breonna Jones. And so my poem is called Obeyed in Pieces for My Ex-Lover.
Sorry.
It's okay. Right.
Just want to take a picture.
Can you say the title?
Picture. What'd you say? Oh, the title? Sure. Obeyed in Pieces for My Ex-Lovers. I am letting go of ex-lovers. I am saying goodbye in between stanzas. Ancient I ams on my BlackBerry deleted. That tear-filled message after our 5th breakup. I will love you forever, boo. Sad face. A favorite photo of us torn in half. An ex-lover cheated with my neighbor's girlfriend. If you see me on the street, cross over. I screamed and meant it. I saved my first love poem from my first lover, crumpled in her pocket, damp from a rainstorm. We were 18. She was my first poet. Rain soaked on our first night together. I cried when she handed me that love poem. A woman has always felt like coming home. Every goodbye feels like leaving home. I want to hold on to young me. My only cue was love and deep kisses. I've saved a space in my heart for women's bars that held secret lovers. Crushes explored under tables. Even an angry lover who dumped my panties on a conference room table during a staff meeting, my first real job. True story. I'm holding on to all lessons learned. Mama said, don't shit will you eat, child. I wonder what happened to that lover. She only wanted to sex me all summer long. And the next woman after her, who held on to my every word. Goodbye to the lover I followed 3,000 miles, only to learn she saw us as just friends. Thank you to that same woman. She gifted me her room that sweet summer. So long to the PhD who left her lover for me and insisted on no PDAs in public, JP. I'm thankful for the first lover I lived with. She painted a tiny room Navajo white and called it my writer's den. Anita Baker's Sweet Love was our jam. I love praise poems. Anyone who knows me knows that. So I'm going to read a praise poem, and this is from the anthology Furious Flower, Seeing the Future of African-American Poetry from Northwestern. Praise poem for my Leo self. And this is a Leo poem for Mecca, a fellow Leo in the room. Praise Grandma Pearl, who called me a bulldagger when I first came out the closet. Praise all those decades later, when Grandma told me on her deathbed how happy she was that I was still with that nice girl. Make sure she keep looking after you, okay, baby? Praise those 2 women who each brought me pleasure on the corner of Perry Street. Praise my nipples, a perfect morsel for each woman that hot summer night. Praise my bold Leo self who didn't care whether passers-by saw us. Praise power of pleasure. Praise that angry customs agent in the airport who yelled at my partner and me and our young son all those years ago. No, he cannot have 2 mothers. That is impossible. Praise the look of shock on his face when we pulled out our child's birth certificate with both our names listed as parents. Praise mother. Praise us all, lesbian, queer, bi, trans, questioning women. Praise how we nurture when the rest of the world pushes us down. Praise women who keep rising to the top. Praise my scared little girl self. Praise her memories. Praise mama's cycle of sadness. Praise mamas who sometimes want out of the world and away from their children. Praise mamas whose sadness swallows a whole childhood. Praise a child's ability to survive. Praise my inner strength. Praise that smart, confident person that breathes in my skin. Love her when she's bold, and then again when she's scared. Praise all the marches I've been in. Praise the call for justice for queer bodies and Black boys and girls everywhere. Praise all the people that will continue to march for justice when I can't anymore. Praise my weary feet. Let them dance tonight, remembering all that love, all that love. This is another praise poem. Goodbye praise poem to the past. I think I just had fun when I was writing this. Goodbye to the past, to the drama I once craved. How was I living, y'all? Praise women who said my name in bed, on balconies, in women's bars. Sometimes they yelled Juliet from the damn street below while I slept. Praise my youth and my Leo swag. Praise all the lovers and exes who showed up to my 28th birthday soiree. Praise the shade and the eye rolls. Praise the Moscato that flowed. Praise how we took the party to the roof of that Fort Greene brownstone. Praise CC Peniston's finally all night long. Praise mama who said, you a true Leo, huh, baby girl, with pride. When I told her how I celebrated into morning with all those women. Praise sunrise and memory and women's names who I will never forget. Praise my past and all that Leo drama. Praise lessons learned. Praise the music that still gets me out on the dance floor. Thank you. This next poem, I remember it was a beautiful launch that was here for the anthology, Our Happy Hours, LGBT Voices from the Gay Bars. And that's edited by S. Renee Bess and Lee Lynch, and Ann Apteker was the one who organized that. And it was a great reading. So this is for Poem for the Queer Spaces, where love blooms in New York. And if anybody who's been around for a while, you're gonna recognize some of the bar names here. Some days I have no words, just memory of her scent as she leaned in to kiss me. My bar stool melted, the club became a spinning wheel, and everyone around us disappeared. The beat of house music, her lips fire against my neck when she whispered, I've dreamed about kissing you every day since we met. I repeated that line to lovers in New York clubs over the years. It was true. Each time I whispered or begged or texted, I've dreamed about kissing you every day since we met. Oh, how I've always loved the scent of women in clubs, sweaty bodies drenched in Egyptian musk. Rhythm of DJs helped us forget the world beyond those club doors. Roll call. I remember all the New York ladies clubs, each one a new adventure. I kissed beautiful women in the Clip Club, Cubbyhole, the Box, and on the second floor of Crazy Nannies in the back by the bar. I once kissed my secret lover in a public corner windowsill of Henrietta Hudson's on Halloween Eve. A lavender skeleton dangled above us. She slid her hand under my shirt, and I whispered, I've dreamed about kissing you every day since we met. We were young and free, all our bodies sexy. We pushed up against one another on dance floors, butches and Oxford wingtips, and femmes and stilettos, swirling, swirling until the music stopped. Thank you. He's going to end with one poem from my book, Say Mirror. I always try to share this poem as an offering for anyone in the room who's going through a difficult time, or if you know someone who is. It's called What to Say to a Friend Who Wants to Give Up. Say, I love you, even when you can't love yourself. Say, please, please, not today. Say, too much life unlived. Say, mirror. Say, beautiful. Say, this arm, take this arm. Say, grab. Say, hold. Say, let tears fall. Say, tears heal. Say, forgive your mama. Say, she did the best she could. Say, tomorrow. Say, sleep. Say, split seconds, split the seconds. Say, let the seconds turn into days. Say, today. Say, tomorrow. Say, sun. Say, warm. Say, skin. Say, warm skin. Say, sunlight. say new day, say breathe, say inhale, say exhale, say not today, baby girl, say so much life to live, say love, say I love you, say hold on to love. Thank you. Thanks, y'all.
When JP was like listing some of the bars, does anyone remember? And I'm only mentioning this because it came up to like today or the day before. And I was trying to I was telling people how of all places, East 58th Street was like kind of had a whole bunch of gay bars and restaurants way back when. It's down to now just the townhouse, but does anyone remember a place? I think it was called Julie's on 58th Street. No, okay, I'm really old. Because I'm hoping that I was really hoping that someone
Regions.
No, that was down Second Avenue, but yeah, no, I got it. No, this was a lesbian restaurant and bar on 58th Street, and but the fact is the food was so great, and I mean like garlic like crazy. I'm sorry. I'm like, wait, I'm gonna throw us all off with just my reminiscence. And I'm also very old. So Jim Berg is a writer, editor, and consultant, and as of a few months ago, one of the most recent members of the Publishing Triangle Steering Committee. His academic work, publishes James J. Berg, includes The Isherwood Century, which won the Lambda Literary Award for Gay Studies. His most recent book is Isherwood on Writing. He also writes fiction, currently unpublished, and he's a freelance developmental editor, working with writers on academic and non-academic projects. Please welcome Jim Berg.
Thanks. This is a Christmas story. It's called Geraldo Rivera Outed Me on National Television. It was published this summer on Salon.com. After Thanksgiving in 1987, during a primetime special, Geraldo Rivera showed a video clip of me and my boyfriend kissing on the National Mall that was taken during that year's National March on Washington for gay and lesbian rights. Geraldo's primetime special was called Modern Love and purported to show how AIDS had changed contemporary society. The show caused a commotion in my family because I wasn't out. I had not even heard of the show until my sister, Betsy, called me. She said she had seen me on TV kissing another guy. So are you gay? She asked. At the time, I was 23 years old and living in Minneapolis. I had attended the march with my boyfriend, Terry. We were able to catch a repeat of the show the night she called. We were both shocked to see ourselves. The clip of us was used during the opening credits, during the segment on the gay community, and during the closing credits. There we were, arm in arm, and yes, we were kissing. It was a short, affectionate peck. It wasn't like we were making out in front of the camera. But if you thought you saw your little brother at the beginning, you had two more chances to confirm that yes, that was your little brother kissing a guy. Watching it myself, I remembered being at the demonstration on the mall and seeing the scaffolding with television cameras. They had to have been at least a football field away. I never considered they might focus on us, much less that the images would be broadcast on national television. I mean, that's the stuff of paranoia and nightmares. Back in the day, before social media, you could be out in your personal circle and you could almost manage the number of people who knew or the situations in which you were out or closeted. But the closet exists on a spectrum from you're out all the time and to the world to you're not even out to yourself. Everywhere on that spectrum, the closet exists as a set of internal and external constraints put on LGBTQ people. For some of us, it keeps us safe. For some, it's a mental prison. For me, even now, there's a continuing process of undoing its effects. The nightmare situation had arrived. For about 15 minutes, I cried and screamed into the pillow. I knew my parents would find out and they would disown me. I was sure of it. My mom answered the phone when I called and then got my dad to pick up on the other line. I don't remember what I said, probably that there was this show and did she see it? No, she didn't. Why? What's this all about? I must have said that my roommate is really my boyfriend and we were on television kissing. There was silence. Are you telling us you're a gay? Yes. True to expectations, my dad said, then you're no son of mine, and hung up. Mom stayed on the line long enough to say, I could have gone my whole life without hearing that. I grew up in northern Wisconsin, about 150 miles from Minneapolis. In my college years, I gradually came out to friends, sought out gay roommates, had a boyfriend or two. Terry was the first boyfriend that I had lived with. Since I couldn't talk to my family then about this one foundational part of my identity, I didn't talk to them about much of anything. At one family gathering, we were talking about music and somebody asked me what I liked. My mind froze because I couldn't think of one band or singer that didn't sound too gay. Wham? Bronski Beats? Geraldo, with the help of my sister, had broken down the closet door for me. With nothing more to lose, I made some other calls. My brother Bill, have a big family. My brother Bill was calm and reassuring on the phone. It's not like it's a surprise. By the end of the night, I was exhausted and cried out, but I began to feel relieved that the conversations I had dreaded for so long were finally over. Later, Mom explained that my dad wouldn't allow me in their house, so I was no longer invited for Christmas. Remember, this is a Christmas story. I told myself and others that I could live with that. Dad and I never liked each other. He pushed me into things, traditional boy things like sports that I didn't want to do. And then he was disappointed when I hated them. I wouldn't miss him at all. Mom went along since, as she said, she had to live with them. Someone said I was estranged from my family in this period. That seemed too strong a word and it sounded permanent. Were we estranged or just distant? When I was in the closet, I had convinced myself that no one would be interested in anything I was doing anyway, whether it was a relationship, a job, or graduate school. Some of my mom's perhaps well-meaning comments supported this impression. I told her in a letter when Terry and I broke up. She wrote back, maybe it's for the best. I heard the judgment in that, as if she could deal with me being gay in theory, but didn't want to think about me being with another guy. It was best that I remained single. I didn't. On or around my 25th birthday, I wrote my dad a letter asking if he was ever going to relent. It wasn't a pleading letter. The impression I meant to give was that I didn't care one way or the other. But I had spent a lot of time with my therapist talking about what she called my family of origin issues. So I told him I wanted a final answer. Did I have a father or not? He called me when he got the letter. He missed me, his youngest, and he wanted to make up, sort of. He made it clear he still didn't want to hear about anything gay, and he never wanted to meet my boyfriend. A few years passed. I fell in love and moved in with Gary. Eventually, we were invited together to a holiday gathering hosted by another sister. My parents were also invited. If they don't want to come, they don't have to, Nancy said. They did. The four of us met in Nancy's living room. Mom and Dad were polite to Gary and me, and then we went into separate rooms, a truce, a bit of a thaw. I think of families as houses. The bigger the family, the more bedrooms. My parents had their room, each sibling had a room with their spouses and children, and then there's a kitchen and a living room where group activities happen. Gary and I left our room once in a while for birthdays and holidays, but mostly we stayed out of the common areas. Not in the closet anymore, but still separate. For my part, it hurt that my parents didn't see Gary on par with my sister's husbands or my brother's wives. No, we weren't married, it wasn't legal, and we didn't really believe in marriage anyway. We didn't need the government to sanction our relationship, thank you. I wrote as much in a literary magazine I edited around that time, offending one of my sisters, another sister. What's wrong with mimicking heterosexual marriage? Either I wasn't communicating well enough about my life and values, or they weren't ready to hear it. Had we moved away from being estranged only to remain distant? Honesty takes practice, and we didn't have that much time to practice being honest with one another. This went on for a few years and it was fine. When my dad died at 64, I mourned the relationship we didn't have, that we would never achieve. Would he have become more accepting as he got older, mellowing with age, the way my mom seems to? Would he have liked me? Would I have liked him? Amid the grief, there was relief. For the first time in my life, I didn't have to worry about his disapproval or negativity. It was as if the censor on my shoulder had gone away. My relations with my mom and my siblings were easier and freer. And yet I still felt they didn't really want to know me, the real me. There were things I held very close that I thought would be too gay for them. At my dad's funeral, my brother-in-law, Chuck, tried to help break down my walls. He had been welcoming and compassionate back when I was a girly 17-year-old boy. Everyone here cares about you, Chuck said. It was the simplest statement, but it shook me. I had believed the opposite. I felt I needed to reassess my family, see my brothers and sisters as individuals again. What was my role in the family now that I was an adult and our father was gone? How could I support my mother and be a brother to them? Fast forward, I met Koji when living in California. He lived here in the city and we started a long distance relationship. I moved to New York in 2016 and in the fall of 2019, we decided to get married now that it was legal. I would need to tell my mom. We'd gotten a bit closer over the years. She visited me when I lived in Palm Springs, loving the warmth and the sun. She met Koji there and liked him. Even more surprising, she liked my cat. Mom and I talked more about our lives. I asked questions about her growing up, and she asked about my work. We never talked about me getting married. I felt there were things she still didn't want to hear about. 20 years later, some of those walls still stood. I knew there was no way she could attend the wedding. Her traveling days were over. She didn't take it well. She said, "Oh, Jim, I wish you weren't saying that." I immediately got defensive, but took a second to clear my mind and asked her why. "I don't know, I wish you weren't saying that." It felt to me like a knee-jerk reaction. I had set my own aside, but she didn't filter hers. Again, she was okay with my relationship, but marriage was a step further than she was prepared to go. Although she was Catholic and she raised her kids that way, she never seemed particularly religious to me. Maybe I misunderstood. I had left the church years before and had never really asked her about her own views. Like I never asked her views on gay marriage. She called me back the same day. I let it go to voicemail. She left a message that I listened to immediately. It was an apology. I waited until she called the next day to talk to her again. "I should be happy for you," she said. "I am happy for you. I can't believe I would act that way to my own son." "We've been through all of this before," I said, thinking back to the Veraldo episode. "I thought you were okay with it." "I never had a problem with you being gay. That was all your dad." I had to stop myself from laughing. She was 85 at the time. I wasn't going to argue with her or try to make her remember things the way that I remembered them. She had always played the middle between me and my dad. I told myself it didn't hurt me at all, but it did. My mother died in January 2021 at age 86. We COVID delayed her funeral until August, and then our wedding was in Palm Springs in November. All of my siblings came, along with many of their children and grandchildren. The importance of marriage, of a wedding, was obvious to me for once. Here we were, two guys in our 50s, recognized and honored by family and friends. My brothers and sisters welcomed me into a club I didn't know I wanted to be in. It wasn't the club of the married. It was the club of my family. It should have been obvious, but my brother-in-law made sure to remind me, we all care about you. Of course, they had all along. It took me 25 years to accept it. It's the cruelty of the closet that it created and then maintained such a distance between us. My 6 siblings, their spouses, and me, 13 of us. Finally, we had reached a point where we could all celebrate my happiness, my marriage, and our whole family. As my brother Bill said, now we are 14.
Oh, Jim, we have to talk. that was great. Thank you. Next up, making sure he's still there. Yes. Michael Klein, Michael Klein, who I knew from New York. I don't actually, I just, the way people in the business, like show business, people in the writing life, their lives cross, and I could have sworn Michael Klein lived in like Brooklyn or something when I asked him to read here. And then he writes back, I don't mind coming to the Bureau for the reading. And this is like literally like 3 weeks ago. I don't mind coming to the Bureau for the reading, but I'm in RI right now. Is it okay if I Zoom? And I was like, RI, Roosevelt Island? But no, matter of fact, he is in Rhode Island, which, yeah, that I think actually especially generous for him then to say he would be willing to come in to read in person. Michael is a poet and writer who recently retired from teaching after more than 20 years. He's now consulting writers on memoir and poetry manuscripts. He's had 4 books of poems out, and the first one, 1990, tied with James Schuyler to win a Lambda Literary Award. His latest book, The Early Minutes of Without, will be published, or maybe it has been published actually. And there it is. It's been published this fall, and he's currently working on a memoir, although maybe he's going to put that up for me too. He either is currently or is done working on a memoir about art and education, tentatively titled Happiness Ruined Everything. Please welcome, live from RI, Michael.
Thanks, everybody. I can't hear you, but I can see you. There you are. Hi, Carol. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The only reason I'm not there in person, and I love the Bureau, and I've done a few readings there, and I've attended a few readings, and the really reason I'm not there, I'm in Newport, Rhode Island, by the way, which is different than being in Rhode Island. It's up there. But the reason I'm not is because the times that I have gone to New York, I had a reading at KGB a few weeks ago, which of course I had to be at, and because it had been planned for a long time. But it's a nightmare. It's not a nightmare getting out of Rhode Island, but as soon as I hit New York, it's like insane. And I had made the mistake. The last time I was there, it was on Columbus Day. I thought they had canceled the parade, but they hadn't, and there was a Palestinian a protest, thank God, in front of the UN, which was more important than any parade down Fifth Avenue, except that all the traffic for some reason on the east side was diverted there, so I had to wait 2 hours, and I was almost late for the reading. I had left here like at noon. Anyway, enough about that. I'm gonna read some poems. I'm happy to be here, happy to see you. It's hard to write poetry today. It's hard to read it. It's hard to do anything that feels like art matters at all. But it does, and it always has. And I am convinced, even though it may be a quiet convincing, that it's the thing that's going to save us. And we're the ones who are going to save us. It's not politics. It's not who's in charge, because we are in charge. We the people. And here's a dream I had. It's called The Dream Makers. In my dream world, I never have any money. And there's always a point in the action where I'm confused, because you don't need money when you're asleep. I forget that I am already asleep in the asleep. There are so many people milling around in what I'm making. Dead people, famous people, people I never saw before who are there just for sex. And there are scenes in the dreams that are always getting interrupted because my dead twin keeps traipsing around the set, dragging a huge key, only mildly convinced he's back to life, entering the milky fluid of his brother's dream from some blind somewhere. My brother is always impossible to read. while my dead mother bangs her forehead on the formica in the other room, which can be the kitchen or a pantry that has nothing on the shelves. She's my frustrated mother character who can never remember how she died on Earth. On Earth, my mother could barely remember how she lived through so many days and nights of not living. I once saw a Huxley quote graffitied on the side of a dressing room trailer for a movie they were making on 17th Street across from Barney's. What if Earth is another planet's hell? What if the movies we make down here are the dreams the other planet is having and signaling to us through lifetimes of authoritarian rule, messages about the next task for us to complete in hell? What if our movies were invented to please them, the crazies on the captor planet who terrorize us by making us look away from our lives to what's on the screen? That came out of nowhere. Thank you. That was such insane poem. The difference between poems and poetry, and there is a difference for those people who think that there isn't, and there are people who write things that they think can be anything. But poetry has a long tradition. You can't force it. You can't force poetry. Prose you can force. And I don't mean force it as a mean thing, as a bad thing. It's just that, when you're writing prose, and it's nonfiction or fiction, I write nonfiction, but I find myself it's a very different commitment. And unfortunately, poetry, and JP, I'm sure you agree with this, it's really, it finds you more than you find it. And it's hard to describe, and I don't want to go into it too deeply, but I just want to put that out there because I do both. And poetry is the thing that I've always come back to. This is called 5 Places for Sex, and I'm just going to read 2 of them. But there are 5. If you get the book, there are 5. The train. I saw him sitting by himself. I saw him reading a book I was reading too. He was in school. I was in school. We were taking a trip somewhere without knowing each other. I think we were going to Vermont. I sat down next to him. The train kept making false starts and finally lumbered through the night like a hungry and slightly disinterested panther. I looked down to his book and couldn't read the sentence. I looked down at his crotch and imagined that his cock was getting hard behind the story. His cock is getting hard, I thought, because the combination of reading and someone looking at you with passion is the sexiest thing. I could see his cock tilt the book. I was getting hard. The cock was tilting the reading because by the time the book had become a blanket that was laying over his crotch, the train was slightly dangerous and slightly cold. But all this warmth moving up between us, I could say something now, seeing him sexily move back and forth between the sentence and the cock. That all meant I could say something now about now. I could take my slightly shaky hand and put it under the book where I found his cock and the rest of his mind and say, hello, 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 until the panther rested down so much in the springy hills. This is called The Theater. After he came in my mouth, he touched my hair. That's pretty hair, he said. I didn't want to swallow the cum. He came in there because of the new sex scare. This was 1980 something, I think. I drank then, so it could be 1950 something. I think, and I'm much older than you, Rob, by the way. I'm 70 next year. I thanked the boy himself with beautiful hair. I thanked him with a mouth that couldn't say anything he could understand. I moved the cum around my mouth. It was like a thin, gluey river until it lost its taste and only was what it felt like. All this until the boy left the movie theater, and then I spit the cum out on the floor. Up on the screen, beautiful boys were still alive, shoving their bodies into other bodies and squinting to very basic music. I watched the movie a few minutes more before I left, looking for something about what just happened. but couldn't find anything. What had just happened in the world only once. What had just happened had to do with hair and holding cum in my mouth. Nobody holds anything like that, all that, in the porno movies. In the porno movies, people don't think about life and death as it pertains to sex. They think that life is the empty room between cum shots, ticket shots, like street lights that blaze on at the same time every night. Almost shocking they are if it weren't for them lighting up the dark boulevard. Thank you. I read those. I have to be honest with you. I only read those because of the audience, you know, the queer-friendly audience. And I really never read them out loud. And it's kind of shocking. Like I was thinking, I can't believe I fucking said that. It was such a weird feeling. I mean, you know, I was very free when I was in those years of writing. Anyway, I'll read two more. One is I'm going to read part of the last. It's longish, but I'm going to just read a couple of stanzas, and then I'll end with a poem called Beginners. This poem is called Cradle. And it's there are a lot of it. This is a new and selected, by the way. This is the combination of 5 books, and the new poems are in the beginning, and they aren't enough to make a book. So that's what people do when they do new and selected. That's why they call it new and selected. Plus, my first 2 books are completely out of print, and nobody was gonna. I wouldn't think anybody would reprint them. So it was my idea, and thank God somebody took it. Anyway, this is called Cradle. It's the end of it. These are sort of paragraphs that are not really, they're connected, but not really. There's a beautiful scene in a movie I can't remember the title of, except that Holly Hunter is in it. And her guy in the movie is a pilot, I think. The Air Force, I think. And they're saying goodbye to each other before he gets on board a plane. And sitting there in the anticipatory airfield of, I'm sorry, I screwed this up. The Air Force, I think, and they're saying goodbye to each other before he gets on board the plane, sitting there on the anticipatory airfield of Holly Hunter's goodbye to her guy. You know already that the plane is going to crash because of the goodbye. You know the plane's going to go down, and the only reason Holly Hunter is standing there in her completely inappropriate dress for an airfield and her almost completely inappropriate articulation for goodbye, which she's making sound like the same goodbye for the person with a terminal disease. Just before her guy lifts himself into his flying coffin, and just before she breaks away from her terminal disease goodbye, she whispers, "These days are fragile. These days are fragile." Bahia means bay. But like so many words in English, the other language finds more beauty in the meaning and the maybe sound of the meaning. English, Marcello said, is too short. Portuguese, Spanish, these are the long languages. Yes, I said, these are the languages that take in nuance, duende even, and like foreign movies, always more range of humanity than American movies. The recognition that language is to the man the way that man is to the language, inseparable, together in the beginning of the mind. The beginning of thought was written down without knowing how it looked as language, hearing it. The other languages have more music. English, he reminded me, is so short. At the end of the beautiful and prescient despair of Truffaut's Fahrenheit 451, everyone has become the book they are willing to eat because books are being burned. And to keep them alive, they have to be memorialized, which for these people didn't seem as hard as I think it would be for anyone living now. To memorialize a book must be something that thrives among the famished. And thanks again, Rob. Thanks for inviting me. I'm sorry I'm not down there. I promise next time, and I have another book, and when I get to do a reading, I will be down there. Maybe I would have moved back by then. I'm not crazy about Newport. I love the space I live in, but the town, don't get me started. Please. There's a great movie theater, really, which has performed. I saw Ricky Lee Jones and She performed there, and so did not Sean Colvin. Who's the other person that I really like? Ricky Lee Jones and Suzanne Vega. And it's a really tiny theater, so that was very cool. It made it living here almost worth it. Anyway, that month. This is called Beginners. Truth leaked through 1963 at 1:30 Standard Time, and Gary Orn's nervous laughter at the news of Kennedy's 12:30 Central murder, coming through a bad spill of static over PS41's cheap PA. Greenwich Village, a drowsy dandelion, I called it once, and the heartsick monitor of trouble in the afternoon. My mother is late to pick me up again. She's almost better, but won't manage this cure. Outside American family life, nothing really happens until OJ and the glove. But I can't rely on memory alone to determine what it brings closer. I know feelings change the currents of time, but we're wrong about feelings. They are facts, which is why I go to my dog for all the important stuff. She's rifling through her morning bowl in the galley kitchen of both our late adulthoods. Poor Ruby, angel of everything. She wants to feel the world as much as I do. She is eating the world to save it. Thanks. Thank you.
Michael Klein, that was masterful. Thank you so much, Michael. That was brilliant. Can't wait to have you back here. We'll find the right time. We will try to avoid parades and protests. But it's Manhattan, so I can't promise. Quickly, before we get to the next two readers, do remember that our next Outspoken, the next segment of our Outspoken reading series will be held on Saturday, December 2nd at 3 p.m. Gerard, where Gerard, where are you now? Oh, okay. Anyway, Gerard Cabrera will be hosting and coordinating that reading. It will be writing about, with, and through AIDS. Gerard will be joined by Philip Clark, Reginald Harris, Charles Rice Gonzalez, and Stephen Reel. And on January 18th, I believe, Thursday, January 18th, will be another reading. Our headliner so far, at least, is Michael Thomas Ford, who will be here live in person. And we will be filling it up with another 4 to 6 readers. I'm trying not to overwhelm people, but there are so many talented people out there that we want to, fill up the slates. We will also, I'm going to be working with Greg to find a February date. I'm right now trying to find out when Felice Picana will be in town. So, and then March, and then in April, just mark your calendars, April 17th at 7 p.m. or 6 p.m., 7 p.m. I don't know, to be determined. The Publishing Triangle's annual awards ceremony will be held at the New School at 5th Avenue and 13th Street.
Thank you.
And let me just say, I don't want to put too fine of a point on this because we love our fellow LGBTQ plus literary groups, but our event is free. The reception is free, and we give out big ass checks to the award winners. But I say this, and by the way, I will be at the Lambda Literary Awards in June. So don't think it's a slam on Lambda. They have their own mission, we have ours, and which is all the more reason because ours is free. One more reason to remind you, $40 for an annual membership, and you get what you get for free anyway. You will be helping Carol, me, Gerard, and so many other people support queer literature. So please do join us. Okay, now the commercial break is over. Next up, Mecca Jamila Sullivan is the author of the novel Big Girl, a New York Times Editor's Choice selection, and a best books pick from, I'm not even going to read this because it's pretty much everyone. It was a best books of 2023 or 2022, I should say. And it was also a finalist for the Farrell Grumley Award, which is co-administered by the Publishing Triangle along with the Farrell Grumley Foundation. Her previous books are The Poetics of Difference, Queer Feminist Forms, and the African Diaspora, which won the William Sanders Scarborough Prize from the Modern Language Association, and the short story collection Blue Talkin' Love, which was the winner of the Judith Markowitz Award for Fiction from Lambda Literary. It was also a Publishing Triangle finalist in, help me, Mecca. Edmund White Award for Debut Fiction. Yes, thank you. Please welcome Mecca Jamila Cullen.
Much. Thank you, Rob. Thank you to the Publishing Triangle. Thank you to the Bureau. Happy birthday to the Bureau as well. Shout out to my fellow readers. It's really fantastic to be here. I always love reading in this space. It just always feels good, and tonight is no exception. So I'm gonna read from my novel, Big Girl. It's an earlier section, so there's not a ton that you need to know. The novel follows a character named Malaya Condon. It's a coming of age novel about this big Black girl from Harlem, New York, big Black queer girl from Harlem, New York. And in the section that we'll meet her here, she's 8 years old, it's 1990, and she's growing up in Harlem. She goes to school on the Upper East Side. And so she's on the school bus between these two worlds. And she shares that journey with a friend who becomes a love interest named Shanice. My mom gave me extra dulce de coco today, Shanice Guzman said to Malaya after settling into the narrow school bus seat. The motor whirred beneath them as the bus rumbled down Broadway, past the Lin Fong restaurant and La Caridad billiard hall, past the red and yellow awnings of the bodegas, blinking their lights against the gray sky. It was raining, and between the din of the motor, the wet rush of the traffic, and the older children singing pop songs at the back of the bus, Malaya had to lean in to hear Shanice's quiet voice. She gave me a lot extra, like even more than yesterday. Shanice hoisted her peeling Janet Jackson backpack onto her lap and produced an oily paper bag, its mouth crumpled to a close. She brought these bags every day to the coffee shop where the Northern Harlem children waited for the bus to whisk them across Manhattan to Galton on Park Avenue. Her lunch was always a collection of the most delicious forbidden foods, from Mr. Gonzalez's corner bodega, pork rinds and Doritos with cans of Hawaiian punch, beef jerky and bullseyes with now and laters and a quarter water juice, deli sandwiches as thick as fists, and 50-cent bodega pies, always accompanied by a handful of dulce de coco candies wrapped in wax paper and grease. These lunches were unfathomable to Malaya, who was instructed every night to pack her own lunch, a tuna or turkey or reduced fat peanut butter sandwich, all-night bread with light mayo or sugar-free jelly, a cup of yogurt, a diet juice box, and a dry clementine. Thankfully, Shanice was always willing to share her treats. Cool, Malaya said. It was January and cold, but the sleeves of her puffy pink jacket pinched tight and her arms and shoulders. She tugged it off, left arm then right, and balled it up on her lap. These morning rides with Shanice were one of the few pleasures of the school week. They took the bus together every day, stuffing themselves into the small leather seats, feeling their thighs pressed against each other as they ate and talked. Shanice was chubby, but not as big as Malaya. She was heavy, Naila, Malaya's mother would say. She was a yellow-skinned girl with hair the color of brown construction paper left out in the sun. Her straightened bob fell stiffly down from her head, swiping at the collar of her jean jacket, almost like a white girl's, but with sharp, jagged edges that reminded Malaya of scissors. Naila had vowed not to let Malaya relax her hair until her 16th birthday, despite her most enthusiastic protestations. Every day on the school bus, Malaya looked at the flap and flow of Shanice's hair with envy, stealing pats and rubs of it when no one was looking, which Shanice never seemed to mind. She opened the paper bag of forbidden foods, and together they talked about boys and ate what was for Malaya the second breakfast of the day. We had butter bread and marmalade this morning, Shanice continued, plus plantain and cheese and mango juice. It was real good. Malaya imagined a sheen of butter seeping into the slice of toast as thick as a textbook, dollops of sweet orange marmalade flecked with amber spreading over the bread in luxurious swirls. Shanice's voice grew louder as she spoke, and she sat up a little bit in the seat. My mom was watching, so I couldn't bring you any. Shanice was normally quiet, with a distant expression that reminded Malaya of a bored or irritated adult. But each morning, Malaya watched Shanice's face stretch wide and her cheeks flicker with light as she talked about her mother. Sometimes she got so excited her words tripped over themselves, like when she described the marvelous breakfast her mother had made her: sausages, potatoes, guava bread, and all kinds of jellies. According to Shanice, her mother was a beautiful woman with a name almost as fancy as apple pie a la mode, Patricia, the T and RI of which stuck fabulously together over Malaya's tongue and slid into a delicious lace of soft S and vowel sounds when she said it, Patricia. To hear Shanice tell it, Patricia Guzman was a miracle of motherhood. She came from a beautiful place called Santo Domingo, where, in Malaya's mind at least, the sweet dulce de coco candies grew in fields. Malaya had never met Shanice's mother. Shanice usually came to the bus stop alone, and it was her father who attended parent-teacher conference nights at Galton. Naila had said this was what happened when people tried to raise families without being married. One always got caught holding the bag. Still, Malaya appreciated the mystery of the woman. She imagined Patricia Guzman, tall and curvy as a tomato vine, her blonde hair falling like a splash of lemonade behind her, her body ever sprawling forward to the rhythm of her name. My mom told me to share the dulce with Rodrigo from the building because, she knows he likes me. Shanice smiled, revealing a missing canine tooth. She pulled the candy from its oily package and passed them out of coconut to Malaya. Malaya couldn't decide which part of the bus ride she liked better, the food or the talking. Shanice was a year older than Malaya and had been admitted to Galton from PS 153, the nearby public school, on scholarship only under the provision that she repeat the first grade. When Malaya got to the first grade, it seemed like Shanice had been there for years, if not forever. Shanice was what Naila called grown and what Malaya's grandmother, Mamer, called fast. Even at 9, she moved like someone who had lived a life and had stories to tell, though she rarely told them in their entirety, which made her even more like an adult. Yet there was a quiet sadness to Shanice that Malaya liked, as though beneath her fierce set eyes and pudgy frown, what she really wanted most was candy and a nap. Sometimes Shanice's hair and skin and savvy scared Malaya. Every now and then she worried that she would one day become a pretty girl like the 5th grader Amandra Wilson and leave Malaya behind. So she simply made a point of not talking to Shanice among the wealthy kids at Galton. Shanice's father, Jerome Armistice, was quiet, a Jerry Cove man who worked long hours on the sales floor of the home and office depot on the Upper West Side, which meant that her family was even further from wealthy than Malaya's. This idea comforted Malaya, though she knew better than to say so. Shanice told her boy stories with a cool detachment, sighing as she recounted the bags of bodega candy and sunflower seeds they brought her, or how they etched her name and theirs together, ensconced in a heart on the wall of her building's elevator. But for Malaya, Shanice's stories about boys were delicious. She guzzled them excitedly, interjecting once in a while with stories of her own. Malaya had no real boys to talk about, so she made up imaginary boys on her block who liked her. She gave them names like Quentin and Romulus, which she had come up across in books, though she had had a hard time spelling them when she wrote them down in her Hello Kitty diary. Malaya bit into the dulce, sweet bursts of coconut juice sloshing in her mouth as she chewed. This boy on my block likes me too, she said, hoping to sound casual. I mean, he sweats me. His name is Matthias. He has hazel eyes and he's fly. She rolled her neck a little, as she'd seen the older girls do on her block. That's cool. Shanice fidgeted with the strap of her backpack and looked out the window as the bus neared the elevated train tracks on 125th. You want to come over later? Malaya asked. Giselle says she's making Haitian patties and rice. My mom said you could come. She put another candy in her mouth, trying not to sound too eager as she waited for a response. Shanice came to the brownstone after school several afternoons a week, which gave the two a chance to feel each other's bodies and touch each other's hair all they wanted. This was one of the few times Malaya's roundness worked in her favor. Shanice's weight was concentrated tightly and evenly from her shoulders to her ankles, giving her body a banana-like bulge. Malaya, on the other hand, was round everywhere, and though she had no waist to speak of, she did have soft, deep cups of flesh around her nipples that could pass for breasts. This meant that when she and Shanice played, Malaya got to be the girl. They would sneak together into the family room on the second floor of the brownstone while Giselle cooked dinner downstairs, taking towels from her parents' bathroom and pinning the ends to the floor with Malaya's mother's Malayan statuettes, sliding Mamir's old rocking chair to the center of the circle to give their tent shape a bulge. Malaya would lie beneath Shanice, squeezing herself against her body until she started to warm. When the feeling got good, she would lock slick tufts of Shanice's hair between her knuckles and wiggle her hand, letting the strands prickle the crevices between her fingers, sending bolts of feeling down to her armpits and the folds of her legs. Sometimes she would imagine Shanice was Dondre Harris, the gorgeous fifth grader, and she was Amandra Wilson, his girlfriend. Sometimes Shanice would slide her arms into Malaya's sweatshirt sleeves and press her palms against Malaya so it looked like the small, butter-colored hands coming out of the shirt were Malaya's own. They never talked about these games. Outside the brownstone, the closest they came to touching was the press of one's leg against the other as they ate on the school bus. Yeah, Shanice said finally, I can come over. My mom won't mind. She was still turned toward the window, distant, but it didn't matter. Now Malaya took another dulce, the crisp coconut shards melting in her cheeks and leaving moist brown pads on the sweetness of her fingertips as she looked forward to the afternoon. Thank you.
Jamila Sullivan, thank you. Our final reader, very excited, by the way, about this. A poet that I have to admit, well, I'm not a poetry guy, but I'm getting there. But I had not known of until last June, and then I watched him and I was blown away. So I'm glad he's here today. Sean Patrick Mulroy is a writer, actor, visual artist, and musician from the American South who now lives all over the world. A nationally recognized writer in the US, excuse me, Sean is a performer and award-winning professor and earned his MFA in creative writing from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Sean is a 2013 Lambda Literary Fellow, a 2017-2018 writer-in-residence at the Kerouac Project in Orlando, and a 2019 writer-in-residence in Villa Sarkia in Sisma, Finland. Sisma, Phil. We went through this, didn't we, back in June? Yeah. I gotta start memorizing things. He's the author of Hated for the Gods, which he'll be signing for me before he leaves, which is from Button Poetry, and he's the winner of the 2020 Button Poetry Prize. Please welcome Sean Patrick Mulroy.
So I don't like to do a whole lot of talking. I'm just going to do poems at y'all. I do have books for sale. And that's really all I'll say. Thanks so much for being here and for listening. His first poem is called Fetish. Leather braided into leather, bound into a cord and dyed night dark. I don't remember where I bought the bullwhip. Only how it hung suspended from a hook drilled through the ceiling of my first apartment, clearly visible as you walked in through the front door. It stayed there like a talisman against those who might judge my lifestyle, as it was sometimes called in those days, though I was a virgin and the S&M just decoration, except once. Twisted up on X and dextromethorphan, I got a friend to lick my shoulders with the whip's black tongue. It felt good. And I liked the sound it made against my naked back, like someone gave my skin a voice, and it was laughing. Why do we even really need neighborhoods again for Eric, since you asked? Because I can remember being 21, a mine shaft rich with pills and arrogance, self-hatred so pure and dark it burned for years, my only natural resource. I left the oven on all day, all night, so hot, everything I touched was set on fire. Because faggots have a history in flame, flaming being what they call us when we are too loudly or too gracefully ourselves, and history, our history, a thing gone up in smoke because we were a culture once, a culture of abandoned sailors, Nelly gentlemen who carved a homeland from the places men in power didn't want. We loved each other there. We found each other, made each other strong, made each other sick. Because suicide is still a door that most of us will try, and if we're lucky, find it locked. Because the gardens of assimilation spill with colorless flowers. Because they are polite most days, but still pour our blood into the sewer. Because, like all pleasant things, my dear boy, our safety is a lie. It's temporary. Every city, a museum of violent street corners and hidden places they unearthed with shovels of their money, Jesus, and organic groceries stalking us from behind their expensive baby strollers. Because family cannot be made of internet alone. You'd know this if you walked with me where all the buildings once were owned by eyes that see what you see, beauty in the street, the dance hall, the steam house, and the gym, the wonder twisting through the aisles of a bookstore. Here, the world we built because the world we were born into was not built for us. Because I carry inside of me the impossible dream of acceptance, mirage, disintegrating into hasty and convenient sex. And once I thought, like you, denying who I was would save me. Because you're born gay. And if you're lucky, you grow up. And if you're really lucky, you grow up to live within our midst. A hand to slide in yours, unflinching and secure as any key to the front door turns smoothly in the lock. So there's a series of poems in the book called The Evidence Speaks for Itself, and they're all blank sonnets written in the voice of, or in the neighborhood of the voice of various pieces of queer art and architecture that have sort of suffered, like all things queer, from historical erasure. This is The Evidence Speaks for Itself, Shakespeare's sonnets never before in print in 1609 CE. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Footnote. It is important that we recognize what modern readers of the Bard would call a summer's day would not as such make sense to those who lived in Shakespeare's time. In fact, the Pope himself had only just approved the New Style calendar, what then was known as the Gregorian, some 30 years or so before, which means it's possible this famous line was written prior to a common understanding of discrete, unchanging seasons. What we can confirm is Shakespeare wrote the poem for a man. This poem is the other cycle of poems in the book are sex dreams featuring various gay gods from throughout history and different cultures all over the world. This one features Antinous, who was a real person who died and was deified by his lover, the Emperor Hadrian of Rome. And he became this really fascinating combination of like a psychopomp or death god and a love god. And his cult was very popular, albeit in the grander scheme of things, somewhat short-lived, only a few hundred years. Anyway, sex dream in which Antinous thinks you'll look great with bangs. You watch him in the mirror, Antinous, the dying and reborn, while he revives your wet tangle of hair. His golden shears, an ibis chirping at your temples as he asks about your family, what you do for work. He perks up when you mention travel, speaks fondly of his time in Egypt hunting lions with his lover, and it opens you a small amount to listen to his voice tread gracefully the melody of speech belonging to your people. Glowing creature, once a teenage boy, the waters of the Nile stole from Hadrian The emperor by whom he was so loved, he was made God and crowned with flowers, wreaths of the Egyptian lotus, thrown to him at shrines from Carthage to Constantinople, petals the same fuchsia as the silk shirt that he wears to sculpt you delicately with a blade. It's lovemaking, the way he crafts you better than before and swipes the bright flame of the dryer's breath across your neck and shoulders. Lovemaking, the way he baptized you beneath the faucet, blessedly warm fingers of the water mingling with his own. So I very rarely get to read this poem, so I'm excited to read it tonight. This is sort of like one of those dating myself things where it's like, oh, what was in your pop cultural homophobia? What happened that wrecked you when you were a kid? So this poem is called Manslaughter, and the introduction is such. It's in 1995, Jonathan Schmidt agreed to appear on an episode of the Jenny Jones Show dedicated to secret admirers. During filming, Jones revealed Schmidt's secret admirer was his friend Scott Amador, a gay man 7 years his senior. Humiliated, Schmidt shot and killed Amador 3 days later. He was convicted of second-degree manslaughter. I can't stand the way my brother's willing to humiliate himself. Cliches of light bondage, champagne, and chocolate-covered strawberries. Familiar also, silly gay boy falling for the small town simpleton. Carnal fangs sank deep as bullet wound into the flesh. He bears the bite marks as they bleed for talk show circus, tramp clown, pants around his ankles, the audience, a hail of eyes ripped wide through cause of death. A man who hides his face inside the hands that will in days turn murderous and leave a body smeared across the walls of an apartment like a cream pie to the face. This poem is called Oh Homophobia, Up Yours. Thrash me, beat me, or no, excuse me, thrash me, crush me, beat me till you fall. I want to be a victim for you all, X-ray specs. There is no word for hatred of my people that does not contain within it an excuse for all that scurries from the world's mouth, naked, slick with drool, reaching with its jagged claws to scratch the eyes out of the men I love. If I say I do not feel safe inside of non-queer hospitals, or I was a legal adult before gay sex was decriminalized in the United States. If I say there are more jokes about prison rape than depictions of affection between two men in modern media, or there has only been one person to win an Oscar for acting while openly gay in the entire history of the Academy, if I say Kevin Hart or Nancy Reagan, if I say I have dropped out of polite society because everyone is so breathlessly homophobic, I cannot complete the sentence without first considering out loud the feelings of my oppressor, phobia, fear. I'm afraid most straight people need more time to investigate fear, by which I mean I wish them the terror of my youth as educator. If I am to be held captive by my distrust of what does not love as I love, then may religious bigots and officious hypocrites cower before the very idea of being seen by me. A woman scorned, the saying goes, but the man who said it probably never met a fag who pays good attention to the shit that people say. It is a thankless job to slash your wrists and splash what acid boils from the gash into the faces of these beasts, but it is mine. I have bound and gagged men twice my size. I have made complete strangers break down on public transit. You have no idea what I am capable of. One more for you, and I'll get out of your hair. This poem, I'm not gonna spend a long time introducing it, but it's called Podvig, which is Russian for essentially like a life achievement, like you've fulfilled your purpose for being alive. And it's dedicated to Maxim Lapanov, which if you haven't seen the documentary, Welcome to Chechnya, watch it, have a Xanax handy. But basically he escaped concentration camp for gay men in Chechnya and then went back to Russia where he was very likely going to be kidnapped and put there again and then killed to report on it, knowing the government would do nothing, but wanting it to be something that could not be denied. So Podvig for Maxim Lapanov. I hope you will forgive me my devotion, impotent, a pinprick twisted into useless rage on your behalf at cocktail parties thrown for academics drunk on their American Wurst. How I would bring the cities of their courtesy to ruin, but inevitably someone interrupts me to change the subject. History is what a culture tells itself when rising from the charred page of a war to burst luxuriant with poetry and song again. Astonishing to watch our countrymen pretend they cannot hear the music of our people even as they dance to it. A miracle. How still we toil in the service of our nation's joys to be paid with such silence. Hero, thank you for refusing them their favorite currency. Thank you, trading safety for the truth before the jeweled eyes of the same world, swarming with batons the last day that you stood outside a honey festival to sell balloons to children. Rows of market stalls stacked high with sweetness incorruptible as it is stolen. This, the more renowned fruit of an insect needed most to midwife flowers. Nothing blooms without them. Nothing will bear fruit. First there is no color, then no life at all. These two disappear all the more each day from field and headline both. Thank you.
Wow. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you, Sean. We just, one last big give it up for Kristen Dane, J.P. Howard, Jim Berg, Mecca Neil Sullivan, John Patrick Leroy. Yeah, I forget so. Oh, and Michael Klein, sorry. Amazing. Remember, we'll be back December 2nd and again in January. But while a captive audience, I'm not going to do the whole pitch about membership again, but I will say buy queer books, buy poetry, buy fiction, buy nonfiction. There are books right back here. Those of you that are in this room right now, yeah.
I'd like to offer to take a picture of all the readers and the.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, okay. But and while they're making their way up, no, and everyone, readers, make your way up. While we're doing that, oh, I'm sorry, and again, by Dale Corbino's book, is Dale still? Yeah, there it is back there. The books are here. Books are, don't buy Amazon, okay? Books are your local independent store. Books are, you can find books that in many other places that are Amazon. And speaking as a former writer, although I'm not totally out of print, I don't think, maybe I am now, but we all appreciate it. And so, get out there and the 6 people you heard tonight, the people you heard last month, the people you'll hear in a few weeks, just keep buying their books. Thank you. Greg, did you want to close up or?
Yeah, no, I'll just say goodbye, everyone who joined us online. Thank you. Have a good night.